Hey YouTube, Colton here, and I wanted to throw out an idea to see if anyone else has experienced this or has feelings about this. Over the course of a few days, I've kind of had this thought rolling around in my head based on some experiences that I've had as of late, and kind of the core of it boils down to the paid gigs you have are not the same as the artistic projects that you come up with. Kind of, I guess my train of thought here is that it's easy for me personally, and maybe for some of you, to get caught up in all of these different paid gigs that you have on the books, which is kind of a good problem to have, right? To be able to actually get paid to do photography is something that a lot of people strive for. And if you're lucky, you end up sort of falling into doing certain types of gigs that you actually enjoy doing. So for me, that's a lot of event photography, a lot of live performances from musicians, from theater performances, comedy performances, and they're a lot of fun to shoot. In addition to that, I get to do a lot of promo stuff with these different groups, and that ends up being a lot of fun as well. But something happened during the pandemic for me, which is that before the pandemic, I was doing a lot of paid gigs. And then the pandemic hit. And suddenly there were no events to be shot. And so I had a ton of downtime. But I had all this equipment sitting around, and I had all of this time and this creative energy that wasn't being utilized. And so I ended up kind of coming up with some of my own projects. And for the first time in a long time, I was actively and sort of continuously working on the same projects, but they were projects that I had come up with that I was passionate about. And then the pandemic sort of ended-ish and events came back and performances came back and bands started playing again and people took to the stage. And so slowly my gig list started to fill up, which again, a good problem to have. But I noticed, and I think this is where it kind of comes into play, that suddenly I wasn't doing my personal gigs or my personal projects quite as often. And I realized a lot more of my time and energy were flowing into these gigs that I was accepting. And then maybe I wouldn't have noticed that had I not had that extended amount of free time during the pandemic. And so I started to realize I have a lot of fun shooting these events. They feel artistic. A lot of times people will hire me and they'll say, "We really like your work, so we don't want to tell you what to do. We just want you to do it for us and we'll pay you," which is really cool. That's like the best gig you can get, is someone that says, "Just do what you love to do and we'll pay you for it." But I realized even in those situations, I'm still doing this work for someone else. And it's maybe not the subject matter or the method that I would go about doing it if I wasn't being hired by this person or by this organization. And it kind of boiled down to a question. Would I photograph this if I wasn't being paid to photograph it? Now, that's not to say that, again, you can't be creative when you do paid gigs. Absolutely, you should. You should put your own voice into creative gigs. You should be creative. You should utilize all the tools in your tool belt to complete those gigs. And you should be doing gigs that you have fun doing. You know, you'll probably do some that you don't have fun doing, but for the most part, you should enjoy what you do. But at its core, would you shoot any of that if you weren't being paid to do it? Or even if you weren't being compensated in some way to do it? Is it really the same as you coming up with your own project, created out of your own mind, and then pursuing that and building it out? Is that the same as being paid by someone else to shoot something that they need you to shoot and just getting the license to be creative during that shoot? Because I don't think that it is. And maybe there are a few photographers out there who get to do exactly what they're most passionate about and also get paid for it. But the number of photographers doing that are excruciatingly small. The vast majority of photographers will not get to do that. But that doesn't mean that we can't have fun shooting. But it made me stop and kind of think, because now that I'm taking on a lot more gigs again, there's a lot more shows, a lot more events, I'm realizing that I'm having less time for those other projects, and I'm realizing that I have to take a conscious effort to be motivated to do those projects, and to be motivated to set time aside to do those projects, or to be willing to be more selective in the gigs that I accept, to maybe say no to some gigs if it means saying yes to my own projects, not filling up my time to such an extent that I don't have any left for myself. And I think that's maybe the core at what I've been thinking about and getting at. Am I allowing myself the time to do my own projects and to be creative on my own? Or am I sort of getting this faux feeling of artistic creativity, doing gigs that are fun, but allowing that to prevent me from working on my own personal work? Because when I got into photography, it wasn't to make money. I know. Once you get far enough into photography, you're making money, and then that kind of can become consuming. But when I got into photography, I just enjoyed photography, and I enjoyed creating things that I thought were art. And honestly, looking back on it now, most of those were probably garbage. It's just the truth. But at the time, it felt artistic and creative, and in a way it was. But now that I've gotten better and more talented, and I have more gear and tools at my disposal and skills, it's a lot easier to create art that's maybe not total dumpster fire garbage. And I think that that's a really important part of photography, because it's very easy for us in a capitalist society, whether you approve of that or not, to monetize our passions and to feel pressured to monetize our passions. And there's nothing wrong with gaining a skill and then using it to make money. But if you were gaining that skill in the hope of creating something meaningful and then abandon that because of the pressure to make money using that same skill, well, then that's kind of a problem. Maybe we can do both. But if we are going to do both, then probably we have to make sure we're saving space for that creative work. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I don't know if this is even really a full, complete thought, or if it's just sort of the beginning of a thought, but I don't know. I thought maybe it would be cool to put this out there on YouTube and for you guys to be able to comment and tell me what you think about that statement. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have any thoughts that expand on this idea? Any personal experiences trying to juggle between making money and making the art or the projects that are passionate to you personally? I would love to hear that. So please leave that comment if you have something to share. Maybe there could be a part 2 where we kind of discuss further this idea. But it's something that I've been thinking about a lot and just figured I would share with the rest of you. So thank you for watching. My name's Colton. I'll see you next time.